thing I think that kept us guided was the music.
My whole world's upside down.
It just saved you.
Global superstar.
Double Oscar nominee.
9 Grammy Awards.
The queen of hip-hop and R&B, Mary J. Blige. Real love.
Nobody sounds like her.
When Mary sang, I heard the pain of a generation.
In the neighborhood we lived in, it's like prison. There was a lot wrong, and there was a lot I needed to get out. That's why I had that pen.
Sleep don't come easy.
My life is probably my darkest album. At one of the darkest times I've had. Most of the times I was just depressed and didn't want to live. I had it all inside, and I was able to sing it and write it. I didn't know that so many people felt the same way.
She made it okay for people to say it's all right to be me.
We still don't get to see that a lot, you know? Still.
Ooh, baby, I'm going down.
If you're here tonight and you're a Mary J. Blige fan,
I'm going down.
you have been tested, you have been tried,
My whole world's
and you have been proven.
A lot of young black women could relate to where she came from.
She gave us a face, she gave us a name.
You did something really powerful by inspiring each other to want to live to see another day.
Hi, my name is Gil Robertson, president of the African American Film Critics Association. Today, we are thrilled to be talking to the creative team responsible for the amazing Amazon documentary, Mary J. Blige's My Life. We're going to kick things off by introducing you to the African members who are on the call today, beginning with Kim Singleton in New York, Jill Monroe in Los Angeles, Dana Abercrombie in New York, and Nancy Green in Baltimore. Wow, we have a whole East Coast panel today. You guys should be interesting. Anyway, I'm gonna let you guys do what you do so well, and I will see you on the other side.
Hello, ladies. I'm Kim Singleton, considered Black-led podcast and television show out of New York City. And this documentary lays out the dark aspects of Mary J. Blige's life, as well as how she came through it, more or less getting through the valley. So my question to Vanessa is, what parts of the documentary or her life did you identify with in helping you put her story together? And for Ashana and Nicole, what parts did you identify with as Black women?
Yeah, that's a great question. I feel like actually those valleys were the things that really attracted me most to doing this project. And I think connected Mary and I to finding that commonality of just that human experience of being, you know, a kid growing up and a person in their early 20s and how hard it is to find your way. And, you know, I've had my own times with struggles with mental health. I have kids who are struggling a lot right now. And I think it was important to us to make sure that the film was something that understands the foundational, like, human experience that became the music. And obviously that's what connects Mary so much to all her fans and her fans to Mary, is that relatability and that just vulnerability and that ability to work through what she worked through and struggled with and bring that out. So, yeah.
Yeah, Mary's experience is obviously unique to her, but I think I connected with the idea of triumph. And what resonated with me was, you know, if she was able to go through some of the things that she went through and make it to the other side, happy and whole, I can too. So I didn't share in her experience, but I certainly connected to the idea of, I can do this, I can get through this. I'm bigger than my circumstance, and it gets greater later.
Thank you, Nicole.
Well, for me, like Ashana said, I didn't go through the same experiences as Mary, but I also, as a Black woman, went through, again, trying to get on the other side. through my own struggles within myself as a younger girl growing up in the South. So it wasn't the same, but it still was a different experience. But going through that, looking at her story, it made me see, oh, you know, we all can get through it if we just try and if we just continue on our path.
Hi, Jill Monroe, Access to the Life, YouTube Stiletto Jill. So my question is for the three creatives. Mary is so important, as we've highlighted, to Black women, especially from that time period. As you were putting together this story, was there an area that you were surprised to learn about from Mary? Because I think in some ways we feel like we know Mary's story and we know the valleys that she's gone through. So in putting this together and pulling those peaks out, what was something that you felt like, yeah, this is a part of it that I know the audience isn't familiar with, and that was even surprising to you as creatives?
For me, I think the surprising part for me was her not knowing who that she was Mary J. Blige. Like her not knowing that a lot of women loved her and almost want to be like her, want to dress like her, wanted to be everything. So that, I think that surprised me that she sort of, you know, didn't see or know that, or knew that, sorry.
I always love to hear that too, that she didn't know I didn't know I was me, she says. That's amazing. And to me, I think the thing for me getting into this film is actually, I was so new to so much about Mary's life and music and everything that I think also I kind of came in with just such an open book to be surprised about anything and to learn everything and just really wanted to take in everything. And so I think that whether it's surprise or just the willingness to learn and understand and listen, I think everything about her story and all the things we did when we filmed together was just new and just profound for me to learn.
I am a Mary J. Blige fan first. I have the privilege of working with her, but I am a fan first. And so when the Mary J. Blige that I see is so strong and so transparent and so powerful, and she's all of these things. But what I learned in a deeper way was how sensitive and empathetic she is, and how much she feels the pain of others and hurts when someone else hurts. And so when you see someone who's so courageous to stand on stage in front of thousands of people to sing their pain or talk about their story, their journey, their heartbreak, and all these things, you think of that person as so strong. But she's also, as strong as she is, she's also she feels, and she's so empathetic. And so that's the thing that I always have to remind myself, and the doc made me that much more aware of, like, this strong, powerful queen of hip hop soul also feels very deeply. So that's the thing that I learned.
Hi, Nancy Green with Film Critique. And one of the things that I really liked about this documentary and her story in general is you hear so much about people talking about how much they related to her and relate to her. And as I was watching it, I was thinking about the fact that we're going through a time right now where there's a lot of public talk of love Black women, but sort of behind the scenes, Black women are going through so many things, almost like Black women are being harvested for their talents. There's so much stress and all of that. So I wanted to know, what impact do you think that this documentary can have now in terms of just the general feel, not necessarily with relationships, but just how Black women are kind of being stressed in general?
I'll start. I want to make sure I understand the question. What type of impact do I think the documentary has on women outside of just relationships?
Yes, like for this documentary, why now?
Why now? I mean, I think we always need reminders of our strength. I think we always need reminders. We're never going to not have peaks and valleys in a journey. And so I think you always need those reminders. And sometimes we look at these, huge celebrities, and we look at, superstars, and we think that they are without a journey. And I think you always kind of need that reminder. You need it from someone who looks like you. You need it from someone who will be as transparent with you. You need it from someone who has shared some. I've been married. I've been divorced. You need it from someone who can meet you where you are. And I think that's the thing that Mary has, and the gift that she shares with her fans that some may not, is that she really meets a lot of women where they are, and that's why they relate to her in that way. So I think, you always need that. And I think, there was a lot of conversation about doing a story that was centered around a period of her life versus her life story. And I think that period is where she made the biggest connection with her fans. And they've taken a journey with her over the last 30 years that now it's like to reflect back over the last 30 years and to reflect on that journey now and see how far they've come together. I think it was the perfect time. It was also the anniversary, 25th anniversary.
And also to add to that, I feel like, Ashana, that time, I feel like, and why it's important right now, is that was the time in her life where she took real ownership of her own story and her narrative and never looked back. And I think, to me, that was what was the key piece of the film, and why it's important is that it's her voice, and the whole film is her voice, and her life has been her voice and her story. And she is the, she is the person that I think, like your question was asking, like, whether people are being used for certain things, and she refuses to be that. And I think it's a really powerful reminder of that, of again, just your story is your story, your voice is your voice, and that has power.
For me, like Ashana said, is just knowing that we always can look to the left and to the right of us, to one of our sisters, and see we all on the same journey, and that it also, we help each other, pull each other up. So for me, this doc resonate with me, and also I feel that will help Black women, is just to keep going, keep your journey going, keep pulling your sister up, because it's always going to be something that's going to be in our way, but we're here to just move it to the side and just keep pushing and keep going.
Dana Abercrombie from the Coalition. My question is for Vanessa. What was really interesting is that you don't really come from a musical background in terms of directing other music documentaries or even music videos. So I really wanted to know, what was your approach when it came to this docuseries, and how exactly did you want to tackle Mary J and everything that she encompasses, but only just show us a small part?
Yeah, good question. And yeah, I think that when I first started talking to Mary and Nicole and Ashana and the other team, I also said, why of all people in the world am I the person that would be the person to make this film? And I think that the thing that we all really connected on is, again, that it was about, yes, of course it's about the music, of course it's about that moment in time, of course it's about Mary as a person individually, as herself, but really we really wanted to bring out this piece of her life where she was connecting to her fans, and like what was relatable to her, to people who loved her music. And what is that, again, that just this quality of Mary that Ashana talks about, of both, she has such a powerful sense of self and this vulnerability, and it's that kind of balance all the time in Mary that's playing between those two things. And I think that for me, I can always learn about the music. I can always, I can read, I can watch things, I can hear that, but it's trying to get to that deeper core that I think, again, was what we connected on. And I think why, the creative team and Mary herself felt like that I was the person to do this, because I was there to, again, more than anything, just listen and just be really a vehicle to get her story out. But it's not my agenda or my story to tell. I'm just here to, again, amplify
Hi, everyone. Katya Woods, Couple Social, Philadelphia Tribune. I feel like for our generation, Generation X, we grew up with Mary. I remember going down to Tower Records and getting What's the 411. And I feel like she's like the first girl to represent that hip hop around the way girl to tell her story. How important was it? Because it seemed why a lot of people love her. It's that relationship with that generation of women that seems to have sustained her, that seems to have the most correlation. So how important was it to you all to show that relationship? Because we literally grew up together. It's like I feel like on the hip hop side, it's Queen Latifah, and then R&B side, it's her. Nicole, if you want to start.
So for me, I am one of those persons who grew up with her. So I had to make sure it stayed and it was in there, because I'm like every fan there is. So I wanted to make sure that our side and that we saw ourselves when Remind Me came out, when My Life came out. Like, I wanted to make sure that we hit those points, because we needed to be seen and also know that we here to champion Mary and everyone who was around us at that time.
For us, it was about a celebration of, this community that Mary built around that particular album, or that started with that album, and how that community grew with her along the 25 years. So we couldn't tell that story without including people who were along for the journey. And we didn't want this to just be about Mary. We wanted it to be a celebration of Mary and this community that she's built.
Hello, ladies. Kim again. There's so many facets to Mary J. Blige, with her music, with her personal life, with her impact on her audiences. How challenging was it to kind of condense all of that into a documentary? And is there any aspect of the story that you wanted to include that ended up on the cutting room floor? And I'll start with Vanessa, and Ashana and Nicole can answer too.
Yeah, I mean, yes, there's always so much that ends up on the floor that's so sad that it ends up on the floor. We had some really amazing stuff with her fans that I really loved so much. A lot of tour stuff with Mary that just also really shows, like Ashana had said, just all these various sides of Mary. That's just really beautiful to see. And then there's a couple conversations in the film that I just always wish that we could have had more time for, like with her and Chucky and her and Big Bub, and just the level of detail of things that they remember. It was just wonderful to be around them. And we got to meet with Andre Harrell before he passed away. And so there's a lot of his interview that just was really special to me. And Chucky also passed away since we made the film. And again, just his knowledge of the music, and really understanding just so much more about the intricacies of just this beautiful craftsmanship and relationship that they had. I would have loved if we could have, included a lot more of that, and feel very lucky that we got to document that time with them at the time we did.
Awesome. Nicole or Ashana, do you have any particular story about Mary that you would have liked to see in the documentary?
Nicole, you go first.
Well, for me, like Vanessa said, I could have everything was great in the documentary, but I could have just wanted to see, like Vanessa said, Chucky, Bub, everybody who was working on that My Life album, just hear all the stories around it, each song. I would have loved to see that. So that part was like wanting to put more in there, but like Vanessa says, just everything was all that was on the floor. So I think that's a documentary in itself.
I don't know that there was anything that I would have wanted to see more. Maybe just archival stuff. I think back then, There wasn't, a lot of saving of certain pictures and video content. And now everyone shoots everything. You can literally document your whole day on Instagram, but that didn't exist in 92 or 94. So it was a little more difficult to get like a lot of archival photos or archival video content of the studio sessions. They didn't do that back then. So I would say, there's nothing that we could have gotten that we didn't get, but those things just literally don't exist in the way that they do now. So if we had that kind of like archival, recording sessions or things like that, I think that would have been cool.
So this question is for the three of you ladies, whomever wants to answer it. So we talked about Mary's connection with her fans and looking back over her life. What was the conversation like with you and Mary at the end of the project, once it was in the can and it was put together? Because I think that opening yourself up or re-examining your life for a docuseries, it can be a very taxing process, even if triumph is on the end of it. So how did she feel after laying all of those emotions bare, the ups and the downs? And what was that conversation like with you?
Well, there were a lot of tears once we watched the final edit. There were lots and lots of tears. I think I mentioned earlier my acknowledgement of Mary being so empathetic and feeling so deeply. So her having to kind of go back to that place of where she was emotionally and where her heart was in that time during that time, I think was heavy for her. And so, so it was heavy. It was heavy reliving that. And, it took a lot of time and a lot of work for her to get through that period. And so to go back and be in that place and do press every day and do promo and do all these things, talking about that and reliving it, I think it drummed up a lot of old emotions, which was kind of heavy. It also made me respect her so much more. Because to be able to do that and to be able to sing those songs that came from such a personal place every night on tour, and to be able to like go back and peel that Band-Aid off every night and every time, it takes an incredibly strong person. So there were a lot of tears. I think there was a lot of reflection, also a lot of like relief that I did it. I put it out there. Now I can, I shed that skin and now I can move on. I think there was a lot of mixed emotions.
Hi, Nancy again. One of the things that really struck me with the visuals in the documentary was the representation of my life in the sunshine. And I wanted to know if you could talk a bit about how you went about deciding to animate it that way and like what it represents for just for the larger story in general.
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked about the animation, because I think the thing with the animation, partly from what Ashana said about the lack of archival, but also she has such personal stories that she tells about growing up and her time making the music, where we didn't have, again, she's reflecting back, but it's so emotional. And so what we really wanted with the animation is to represent that inner Mary and that sort of Mary, the child Mary, and that emotional self that kind of has an arc through the film of, because that's who she was expressing in that album, is that child Mary, and then that Mary grows up. And so we really wanted that animation to feel that way and to connect in the animation, like My Life in the Sunshine, this idea that as she was growing up, she had this thing that she saw and she felt, but she couldn't reach it and she didn't know what it was, but it was something inside her, felt she could get there in her heart as a kid. And then here comes this song that says that. And then in the animation, we really wanted to connect all those dots where she actually goes on this journey to find that place. And again, wanting to use the animation to sort of tell part of that internal story that that she might not be telling in the words she says, or the footage that we have, and felt like we didn't want to do like reenactments or just, footage of places, but again, wanted to tell something that was a little more lyrical in terms of just, again, the emotional side of it, and to be a little more interior. And so that was sort of the choice of the narration, that you felt like there was that little Mary that grows up, and you understand that sort of from her heart.
Thank you. And I thought the animation was beautiful. It was lovely. I really like that.
My question is for everyone. I was wondering, since you guys were embedded with this album and also with Mary as well, has that kind of changed the perspective of her music and her lyrics as opposed to when you guys were just fans?
I think for me, I don't know. I don't think it changed, because even though I love the lyrics, love the album, at that time when it came out, when I was young, I just was singing it. Now it's like, oh, this is something else. And then certain songs throughout my life, I can pick up and it can relate to me now. But back then when I was the fan, no, I couldn't. It was different.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. It didn't change anything about the way I felt about her. It definitely changed the way I connected with the songs. When that My Life album came out, I was 14. So I was just singing, like Nicole said. But now listening to that, it's almost like it makes me connect with her on a different level and connect to those songs on a different level.
Well, and like one thing Mary always said, which then also, like, if you really go back and listen to specifically My Life, she was what, like 24 when she wrote that song. And if you listen to that song, and she even said it when we would talk, like, how did I do that? Like, it was her younger self, like talking to her older self, you know, like she had wisdom. Like that's the thing too, that just all of her music, and that song in particular, My Life too, just like the wisdom that you carry as the younger person, that younger people don't realize how much they have of that inside wisdom that maybe you lose along the way because people start sort of pushing you down, or you have to conform to whatever it is you have to conform to. But there's like this nugget of really who you are. And Mary knew that, even though she was in those valleys, like she knew it and she was talking to herself. And I just think, to me, that's really, I don't know, just really deep to when you really listen to that a 24-year-old was writing those words.
Yeah. That level of courage and transparency and fearlessness to like write your feelings out, you know, proclaim your love for someone, you know, all of it at 24. I wasn't doing that.
Me either. At all.
Hi, Kathy again. I'm going to put my music hat on. As much as everyone likes My Life, my favorite album of hers is still What's the 411? Because, you know, I had gotten married by the time she came out with My Life. My Life was good. But I do remember, like, I had just graduated from college, and, you know, before we had iPods and all that good business, the cassette was playing on repeat. And this, people forget that What's a 411 came out in the summer. So you would have block parties, you would hear this like in every neighborhood, like in West Philly, North Philly, Southwest. You'd go to New York and you'd hear this music. It's like really one of those things where pre-internet, I'm going to date myself, it was booming like wherever you went. And especially, it didn't go into it that much, but the remixes, it was not as normal to have a remix album, to have songs chart again that had charted originally in the combination. Heavy D had started it a little bit, but Mary, I think, smoothed it out, the combination of hip hop and R&B. Talk about that musical part, because before, the R&B folks were really not trying to do anything with hip hop. They really felt as though it was a threat and it was a disrespect to the genre. And she was raised on hip hop, and being a New York girl, was very comfortable mixing those two genres. So can you talk about that aspect of her career, how hip hop also helped catapult her?
Go ahead, Ashana. You from New York? Because I'm from South Carolina. I caught on a little late.
No, definitely, you from New York, you definitely got to take this one.
Yeah, I mean, well, I mean, that was the driving, like, culture musically that we had. It was all hip hop, and hip hop was so rebellious and cool, and the hip hop artists set the trends in fashion. And, R&B, you listen to what your mom listened to, right? There wasn't any, now you have 20-year-old R&B artists. Back then you didn't have 20-year-old R&B artists. All the R&B artists were older. They were, you listened to what your mom listened to. Hip hop was the generation that was we were on the same, we were closer to the same age group. So your look, your style, your fashion, the way you talked, all of that was fashion after hip hop artists. You just happen to sing. And I think that's just the culture and community that she was around. Like, we just left 2 days ago a video shoot in Aruba, and she was listening to the first Wu-Tang Clan album on set. Like, that's just who she is innately in her blood. If she could rap, she would. I mean, I think she does have a rap alias, Brooklyn Blige. That's just like, that is just in her blood. And I think it's coming from New York. It was in all of our blood. So I don't know if there was a way for her to get away from that. It was the rebellious, disruptive energy from her and Puff to say, this is who we are. We're not gonna look like, anyone else, or we're not gonna fall into R&B lanes or looks or aesthetics. Y'all gonna come to us. And so I think they were just being who they were and not afraid to have people adjust to this new thing and new way that they were introducing R&B.
For sure, thank you. And you could have done a whole documentary on just her influence on fashion. The Black girls were wearing the blonde like that, but Mary wore it, so they were like, okay, let me get my blonde threads.
Absolutely. And like she was an R&B artist, and her video, she had like a suit and a baseball hat on, like that was unheard of. Like, at the time, maybe like Anita Baker, or I don't know who was the popular R&B artist at the time, but she was, everything that wasn't, still influenced by it, but aesthetically and spirit, like in her spirit, she was very hip hop. And so, they were super disruptive and not conforming to what R&B should have looked like at that time. They were like, y'all gonna like this because it's what you guys know and what y'all listening to now. All the hip hop samples and all of it.
Ladies, thank you, all three of you. I mean, again, this documentary is a phenomenal piece of work about a phenomenal woman. So we appreciate your efforts in bringing this project to life. On behalf of the world's largest group of Black film critics, thank you for taking part, thank you for participating, and thank you for watching this edition of AAFCA Roundtables. Have a great day.